They never expected the pressure to become too much. They thought they could carry the weight of lies forever. They thought secrets could stay buried, conversations could remain hidden, and the plans made against you would never come into the light. But listen to me carefully. You are not standing here by accident. God has a way of shaking every foundation that is built on deception, and when He decides the time has come, people begin to crack. They begin to stumble over their own words. They reveal things they promised they would never tell. The very people who smiled in your face while secretly plotting against you suddenly become the reason the truth is exposed. That is not luck. That is the hand of God moving on your behalf. I know you've spent nights wondering why people changed toward you. You questioned yourself. You replayed conversations in your mind. You asked, "What did I do wrong?" But the Lord wants you to stop blaming yourself. The battle was never about your mistakes. It was about the light you carry. Some people could not handle your peace. Others feared your future because they secretly knew what God had placed inside of you. Instead of celebrating your calling, they tried to sabotage it. Instead of protecting you, they planned against you. But hear this with all your heart. No plan formed in darkness can survive when God decides to turn on the light. Isn't it amazing how people eventually expose themselves without you saying a word? You didn't fight back. You didn't chase revenge. You didn't spend your energy proving yourself. And now they are the ones talking. They are the ones confessing. They are the ones revealing every hidden conversation. God doesn't always defend His chosen through arguments. Sometimes He simply allows the guilty to speak until everyone sees the truth. What they thought would destroy you becomes the evidence that clears your name. Maybe you've been carrying the pain of betrayal for far too long. Betrayal cuts deeper than criticism because it comes from people you trusted. It comes from people who knew your heart. It comes from people who knew your dreams. Yet even that pain has not been wasted. Every tear you cried in private became a prayer in heaven. Every lonely night became another reason for God to prepare a greater blessing. While they were planning your downfall, heaven was preparing your promotion. While they were writing your ending, God was writing your new beginning. Don't be surprised if people suddenly come back trying to explain themselves. Don't be shocked when those who ignored you begin acting differently. Truth has a way of making people uncomfortable. Once the lies fall apart, they realize they misjudged you. They realize they listened to the wrong voices. But remember this, forgiveness does not always require returning to the same place that hurt you. God can heal your heart without sending you back into toxic hands. You can forgive and still move forward. The enemy wanted you distracted. He wanted you angry. He wanted bitterness to replace your faith. Because if bitterness entered your heart, your purpose would slow down. But look at you. You're still standing. You're still believing. You're still praying. That alone is proof that the enemy failed. Every attack was meant to break you, yet it only built your character. Every lie made your faith stronger. Every rejection pushed you closer to God's assignment for your life. There is something powerful about remaining silent while God fights for you. Silence is not weakness when it is backed by faith. Silence is confidence that heaven is already handling what you cannot see. People mistake your quietness for defeat, but they don't realize that God is working behind the scenes. Every delay had a purpose. Every unanswered question had an answer waiting in God's timing. Now, the pieces are coming together, and the people who doubted you are watching the story change before their eyes. You don't have to expose anyone. You don't have to seek revenge. God has a perfect way of revealing everything at the right moment. The truth always has patience because it knows it will eventually win. Lies need constant protection. Truth only needs time. And time has become your greatest ally. Every day brings another revelation. Every day another mask falls. Every day another hidden motive becomes visible. What once confused you is now making perfect sense because God is allowing you to see people for who they truly are. Let this be the moment you stop carrying guilt that was never yours. Stop apologizing for being chosen. Stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. Stop doubting the gifts God placed inside of you. The people who plotted against you were never stronger than the God who protects you. They were only temporary characters in a story whose ending was already written by heaven. I believe someone reading these words has been waiting for confirmation. Here it is. God saw everything, every whispered conversation, every secret meeting, every false accusation, every hidden betrayal. Nothing escaped his attention. And because he saw it all, he also prepared justice that no human could stop. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive through punishment. Sometimes justice arrives through elevation. God simply lifts you so high that the lies can no longer reach you. Your future is not determined by those who tried to block your path. It is determined by the one who opened doors no person can close. The same God who protected David from Saul, who lifted Joseph after betrayal, and who honored Esther in the face of opposition, is still working today. He has not forgotten your prayers. He has not ignored your tears. He has not overlooked your faithfulness. So lift your head. Stop looking over your shoulder. Stop expecting another betrayal around every corner. Healing begins when you trust that God's protection is greater than people's intentions. Walk into this new season with confidence. Walk with peace instead of fear. Walk knowing that what was hidden has been revealed. What was stolen will be restored. And what was delayed will arrive at the perfect time. The plot against you has already begun to collapse. The people who thought they were writing your downfall have accidentally become witnesses to your victory. Their own words exposed the truth. Their own actions uncovered the lies. And now God is reminding you of something you should never forget. No conspiracy is greater than His purpose. No betrayal is stronger than His love. And no darkness can overcome the light He placed inside His chosen. Your story is not ending in heartbreak. It is beginning in victory. And the same God who carried you through the storm is about to let the whole world see why He never let you fall. They thought they had everything under control. They believed that if enough people repeated the same story, it would become the truth. They believed that if they whispered behind closed doors, if they exchanged secret messages, if they questioned your character when you weren't around, no one would ever know. They were convinced that what was done in darkness would remain in darkness forever. But they underestimated one thing. They underestimated God. They forgot that nothing is hidden from the one who sees every conversation, hears every whisper, and knows every intention before a single word is spoken. And when God decides that the time has come, every hidden plot begins to unravel in ways no human being can stop. I want you to hear this deeply because someone listening has been carrying the weight of confusion for far too long. You've been asking yourself why people suddenly changed, why doors closed without explanation, why relationships became cold, why opportunities disappeared. You searched your own heart, wondering if you had done something wrong. You replayed conversations in your mind, trying to find the moment everything shifted. But what if I told you that the battle wasn't caused by something you did? What if I told you that there were conversations you never heard, lies you never knew were spoken, and plans being made behind your back while you were simply trying to live faithfully? God wants you to stop blaming yourself for battles that were created by the insecurity of others. Sometimes people don't attack you because you've harmed them. Sometimes they attack you because your presence reminds them of what they could have become if they had chosen faith over fear. Your peace disturbs people who live in chaos. Your integrity exposes those who have grown comfortable with dishonesty. Your kindness shines a light into places where darkness has been hiding for years. You don't even have to say anything. Simply being who God created you to be is enough to make some people uncomfortable. But here's the beautiful part of God's justice. He doesn't need your help exposing the truth. He doesn't ask you to spend your days proving your innocence. He doesn't require you to chase after every rumor or answer every accusation. He simply asks you to trust him. Because when God begins to move, the very people who tried to hide the truth become the ones who reveal it. They begin to contradict themselves. They forget the lies they invented. Their stories no longer match. They become restless because guilt has a way of stealing peace. What was carefully hidden starts falling apart piece by piece until everyone can see what was really happening all along. Have you ever noticed that truth doesn't panic? Truth is patient. Lies have to be protected every single day. A lie needs another lie to survive. It needs constant attention. It needs people to keep repeating it. But truth doesn't have to fight for attention. It simply waits for the right moment. And when God's timing arrives, truth rises naturally, just like the sun rises every morning without asking anyone's permission. No cloud can stop it forever. No darkness can hold it back forever. Eventually the light appears, and everything hidden becomes visible. Some of you have spent months, maybe even years, wondering why your name was being misunderstood. You couldn't understand why people looked at you differently. Friends became distant. Opportunities slipped away. People believed things about you that were never true. It hurt because you knew your heart. You knew your intentions. Yet no matter what you said, it felt like no one was listening. God saw every tear you cried over that pain. He heard every prayer whispered late at night when you asked him to defend you because you were too exhausted to defend yourself. And now something is beginning to shift. You may not see the whole picture yet, but heaven has already started moving. The people who once felt confident in their deception are beginning to feel uneasy. They can't explain why, but the pressure is growing heavier. Guilt has become louder than pride. Fear has become stronger than confidence. The very secrets they promised to keep are becoming too heavy to carry. They begin speaking carelessly. They reveal information they never intended to share. They accidentally confirm what you suspected all along. Sometimes they confess directly. Other times, another person steps forward and exposes everything. Either way, the result is the same. God brings hidden things into the light. Remember the story of Joseph. His brothers believed they had ended his dream forever. They threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, and even lied to their father about what happened. For years it looked like the lie had won, but God was working in places Joseph couldn't see. Every painful season was preparing him for something greater. Eventually, the truth stood stronger than the betrayal. The very brothers who plotted against him found themselves standing before the man they tried to destroy. What they meant for evil, God turned into something that saved many lives. That same God has not changed. He is still writing stories of redemption. He is still turning betrayal into blessing. Maybe your situation doesn't look dramatic like Joseph's, but your pain is still real. Maybe your reputation was damaged. Maybe someone spread false stories about your character. Maybe people smiled in your face while secretly celebrating your struggles. Maybe they hoped you would fail so they could feel better about themselves. But hear me clearly. You are not forgotten. God has never lost sight of you for a single second. While people judged what they could see, God was protecting what they couldn't. There is something powerful that happens when God exposes a hidden plot. He doesn't just reveal the lie, he restores the person who was wounded by it. He heals your confidence, he restores your peace. He reminds you that your identity was never determined by people's opinions. Your identity has always been rooted in his love. The voices that tried to define you were never the highest authority. God's voice has always been greater. So stop carrying the burden of proving yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you. Stop exhausting yourself trying to convince everyone that your heart was pure. Let God do what only He can do. He knows how to reveal the truth without you speaking a single word. He knows how to change hearts. He knows how to bring hidden motives into the open. He knows how to silence false accusations without you lifting a finger. This is your season to trust. instead of fear. This is your season to stand instead of running. This is your season to believe that the same God who sees every hidden conversation also controls every outcome. No plot is greater than his purpose. No secret meeting is stronger than his power. No lie can outlast his truth. The plans made against you may have caused temporary pain, but they will never cancel the destiny God has prepared for your life. The truth is already rising, the darkness is already breaking, and what heaven has ordained for you cannot be stolen by human hands. God's light is shining, and every hidden plot is beginning to crumble before his presence. There were moments when everything inside you wanted to respond. You wanted to explain yourself. You wanted to defend your name. You wanted to confront the people who smiled in your face but spoke against you behind your back. You wanted to expose every lie and correct every false accusation. After all, you knew the truth. You knew your heart. You knew the sacrifices you had made and the pain you had endured. Yet somehow, despite everything you felt, you remained silent. At the time, that silence may have felt like weakness. It may have felt like you were losing while everyone else was winning. But today, I want you to understand something that can completely change the way you see your journey. Your silence was never weakness. Your silence was faith in action. Your silence was proof that you trusted God more than you trusted your own ability to fight. The world teaches us that if someone attacks you, you must attack back. If someone insults you, you should answer with even stronger words. If someone spreads lies about you, you should spend every ounce of energy defending yourself. But God's way has always been different. God's way is built on trust. He asks his children to believe that he sees what they cannot see, and that he is working even when nothing appears to be changing. Silence, when it comes from faith, is not surrender. It is confidence that the Judge of heaven has already heard your case. Think about how exhausting it is to constantly defend yourself before people who have already decided not to believe you. Some people are not searching for the truth. They are searching for reasons to justify their own opinions. No matter how many explanations you give, they will always find another accusation. No matter how much evidence you provide, they will always invent another story. If you spend your life chasing every rumor, you will never have time to walk into the purpose God has prepared for you. That is why God sometimes tells his chosen ones to be still. Not because he is ignoring the problem, but because he is already handling it. While you attempted to fight with your words, God was preparing to fight with his power. While you wanted immediate justice, God was arranging perfect justice. His timing is never rushed because his results are always complete. Perhaps you remember nights when you cried because your silence was misunderstood. People assumed that because you didn't answer, you must have been guilty. They mistook your peace for fear. They interpreted your patience as weakness. They believed they had won because you refused to argue. But what they didn't understand was that heaven was watching. Every insult was recorded. Every betrayal was seen. Every dishonest word reached the ears of God long before it reached yours. There is incredible strength in refusing to become like the people who hurt you. Anyone can return hatred with hatred. Anyone can answer anger with anger. But it takes spiritual maturity to remain calm when your emotions are screaming for revenge. That kind of self-control doesn't come from human strength alone. It comes from knowing that your identity is secure in God. When you know who God says you are, you don't feel the need to chase everyone's approval. You don't panic every time someone misunderstands you, because you know your value was established by heaven long before people formed opinions about you. Some of you have been carrying guilt because you think you should have spoken sooner. You replay old situations in your mind, wondering if everything would have been different had you defended yourself more aggressively. But don't allow regret to steal your peace. God knew exactly when you remained silent, and he knew exactly why. Even when you didn't fully understand it yourself, he was guiding your steps. Sometimes he protects his children by keeping them from saying words they would later regret. Sometimes silence is the very thing that preserves your future. Look at Jesus during his trial. False witnesses stood against him, lies were spoken, accusations filled the room. Yet many times he remained silent. It wasn't because he lacked the truth. It wasn't because he couldn't defend himself. He remained silent because he understood that God's purpose was greater than public opinion. Imagine the power it takes to know you are innocent and still trust your Father instead of fighting every accusation. That same spirit that gave Jesus peace is available to you today.
The enemy wanted your emotions to control your decisions. He wanted you to react in anger so that your reaction would become the new focus instead of the lies spoken against you. He hoped you would lose your peace, damage your testimony, and become distracted from your purpose. But by God's grace, you held on. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe there were moments of frustration. Maybe there were tears. Maybe there were prayers asking God why this was happening. But through it all, you didn't let hatred take root in your heart. That is a victory many people never recognize. Silence also reveals something powerful about your trust. When you truly believe God is your defender, you stop feeling responsible for controlling every outcome. You realize that your assignment is obedience, not revenge. Your assignment is faithfulness, not retaliation. God never asked you to carry the burden of proving your worth to everyone around you. He simply asked you to remain faithful while he worked behind the scenes. Now look at what is happening. The same people who once questioned your silence are beginning to question the people who lied about you. The truth is surfacing without your effort. Conversations are changing, hearts are awakening, masks are falling. God is accomplishing in his perfect timing what endless arguments could never have achieved. This is why waiting on him is never wasted. Do you see how peaceful your heart has become compared to where you once were?
At first, every negative comment hurt deeply. Every false story felt like another wound. But over time, God strengthened you. He taught you that not every battle deserves your voice. Some battles belong entirely to him. And when God takes over, the outcome is always greater than anything you could have achieved on your own. Your silence protected more than your reputation. It protected your spirit. Had you responded with bitterness, that bitterness might have followed you into your future. Had you allowed anger to control you, it could have damaged relationships that God intended to bless. Instead, God preserved your heart. He refused to let temporary pain produce permanent damage inside your soul. Never mistake patience for passivity. Waiting on God is one of the most courageous things a believer can do. It requires faith when emotions demand action. It requires trust when circumstances make no sense. It requires hope when everything around you seems unfair. Yet every day you chose not to let darkness change who you were. You were growing stronger in ways you couldn't even see. Today, the silence that once felt painful has become your testimony. It is evidence that God was with you all along. You didn't need to force the truth because truth belongs to God. You didn't need to destroy anyone because God knows how to reveal every hidden thing. You didn't need to chase justice because heaven never lost your address. So don't regret the moments you stayed quiet. Don't believe the lie that your silence made you weak. It made you stronger. It made you wiser. It made you more dependent on God than on your own emotions. And now, as the truth continues to unfold, everyone can see what you have known all along. God was fighting for you in every silent moment. While you were trusting him, he was working. While you were waiting, he was preparing victory. And while others believed your silence meant defeat, heaven was writing one of the greatest testimonies of your life. For a long time, it looked as though betrayal had won. It seemed like the people who lied about you were moving ahead, while you were left picking up the broken pieces. It felt unfair watching those who caused pain continue smiling as if nothing had happened. There were moments when you questioned whether justice would ever come. You wondered if God had seen everything. You wondered if your prayers had reached heaven. You wondered if your faithfulness had been forgotten. But today, I want you to hear something that your spirit desperately needs to remember. Your promotion has always been greater than their betrayal. What they intended to use as a weapon against you has become the very reason God is preparing to elevate you.
The enemy always attacks what carries purpose. He doesn't waste his energy on people who have no impact. He targets those who are walking toward God's calling because he knows their future carries influence, healing, and hope for others. That is why your journey has been so difficult. It was never because you were forgotten. It was because your destiny mattered. Every obstacle, every disappointment, every betrayal was proof that your future held something valuable. If there had been nothing special about your calling, there would have been no reason for such intense opposition. Think about Joseph once again. His brothers didn't betray him because he had harmed them. They betrayed him because they were jealous of the dream God had placed inside him. They couldn't handle the possibility that God had chosen him for something greater, so they tried to destroy the dream before it could become reality. They threw him into a pit. They sold him into slavery. They believed they had erased his future forever. But they failed to understand one simple truth. You cannot destroy what God has already ordained. Every step they took against Joseph became another step toward the palace. The pit led to promotion. The prison led to purpose. The betrayal became the bridge to his destiny. Your life may not look exactly like Joseph's, but the principle remains the same. The betrayal you experienced is not the end of your story. In fact, it may become the very chapter that people remember most, because it reveals the faithfulness of God. One day, someone will hear your testimony and realize that if God could restore you after everything you endured, He can restore them too. Your pain is becoming a source of hope for others. Maybe you lost friendships because of lies. Maybe family members misunderstood you. Maybe opportunities disappeared because someone damaged your reputation. Maybe you watched doors close one after another until you wondered if they would ever open again. But let me remind you of something powerful. When God closes a door that betrayal has touched, it is often because He is preparing another door that betrayal cannot reach. People can interfere with human opportunities, but they cannot interfere with divine appointments. What God has prepared for you cannot be cancelled by another person's opinion. The beautiful thing about God's promotion is that it doesn't depend on human approval. The world often believes you must know the right people, impress the right crowd, or gain everyone's acceptance before you can move forward. God's kingdom works differently. He can raise one person in a single moment. He can open one unexpected opportunity that changes everything. He can introduce you to one relationship that accomplishes more than years of striving. When His favor begins to move, no amount of opposition can stop it. Perhaps you've been comparing yourself to the people who hurt you. You look at their lives and wonder why they seem successful while you're still waiting. But don't judge the story too early. God's timing is different from human timing. What looks like success today can disappear tomorrow if it isn't built on truth. But what God builds lasts. He is not preparing something temporary for you. He is building a foundation that can support the future He has planned. That kind of preparation takes time, but it is always worth the wait. One of the greatest lies the enemy whispers is, "You'll never recover from this." He wants you to believe that betrayal has permanently damaged your future. He wants you to think that because someone rejected you, God has rejected you too. But rejection from people has never been rejection from God. Sometimes God allows human rejection because He knows those people cannot accompany you into your next season. They may have been part of your past, but they were never meant to define your future. Look back for a moment. There were seasons you thought would destroy you completely. Yet here you are. You survived days you once believed you couldn't survive. You found strength when you thought you had none left. You kept praying even when heaven felt silent. You kept believing even when circumstances made no sense.
That wasn't your strength alone. That was God carrying you through every difficult moment, preparing you for a level of blessing that required a stronger version of you. God often uses painful experiences to shape humble leaders. If success had come easily, perhaps pride would have entered your heart. If everyone had celebrated you from the beginning, perhaps you would have depended more on people than on God. But through betrayal, you learned discernment. Through disappointment, you learned patience. Through rejection, you learned where your true identity comes from. These lessons are not punishments, they are preparation. Promotion in God's kingdom is not only about receiving more, it is about becoming more. Before He increases your influence, He increases your character. Before He enlarges your platform, He strengthens your heart. Before He entrusts you with greater responsibility, He teaches you how to remain faithful in difficult seasons. Every tear you cried was watering the ground where your future blessings would grow. The people who betrayed you believed they were closing your story. Instead, they unknowingly became part of the testimony God will use to inspire countless others. One day, they will realize that every attempt to stop you only pushed you closer to God's purpose. They thought they were creating your ending, but God was writing your introduction. Don't allow bitterness to follow you into the place where God is taking you. The next season requires peace. It requires wisdom. It requires a heart that is free from the chains of yesterday. Forgiveness does not mean pretending the pain never happened. It means refusing to let that pain control your future. You deserve to walk into God's promises without carrying the heavy weight of resentment. Can you imagine what it will feel like when everything finally makes sense? When you look back and realize that every delay protected you, every closed door redirected you, every betrayal refined you, every painful goodbye positioned you for a better hello. In that moment, you won't wish things had happened differently, because you'll see how perfectly God was working through every detail. Your future is not limited by what others did to you. It is determined by what God has already spoken over your life. His promises are stronger than their opinions. His purpose is greater than their plans. His favor reaches places their influence never could. The people who underestimated you never had the authority to define your destiny. That authority has always belonged to God alone. So keep walking forward with confidence. Lift your head and refuse to let yesterday's wounds steal tomorrow's joy. The betrayal was real, but it is not your identity. The pain was real, but it is not your future. God's promotion is already being prepared, and when it arrives, no one will be able to deny that His hand has been upon your life all along. The same people who expected to see you defeated may one day witness your restoration. They may not understand how you recovered so completely, but you will know the answer. It wasn't your strength. It wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was the faithfulness of God, who took every attack, every betrayal, every tear, and transformed them into a testimony that shines brighter than any darkness ever could.